Hey YouTube, it's Mike, aka Plastic Life, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the MAFEX The Batman from Medicom Toy. This figure was recalled due to some QC issues, but some copies were accidentally released to the public already. This figure was highly anticipated since the release of the movie in 2022, and I'm really excited to review this, so let's crack it open and see what we got. And here is the Batman out of the box, and I think it looks really good. I think it's a good representation of Robert Pattinson's Batman in the 2022 movie. It translated very well in figure form here. The cape is a pleather material and it is wired. It ports into the chest. The wire gauge, it's thin enough but strong enough to hold poses. So when you do bend the wire, you can get some good dynamic poses out of that, and that looks really good. I am quite impressed with the detail that they've added to this figure. I think it came out really good. The shoulder pads came out nice. There's some good detail there. The gauntlets are all sculpted, and you can see how nice the detail looks like in the gauntlets. There's weathering in the batarang on the chest, but there's no weathering throughout the rest of the figure, so I'm not sure what they were thinking there, what they were doing there. The belt came out nice. There's so many pouches. They're not functional pouches. This belt is glued into the back, so it's not a free-floating belt. There's some movement here, but it's not free-floating, so just keep that in mind. The holsters came out very nice. The straps on the holsters came out nice. The boots got some sculpted wrinkles in there. That looks good. The armor plates look good. This figure overall looks really good. I do have a pretty bad QC issue where this foot is extremely loose, and I'm not even sure if this thing is going to be able to hold poses, but we'll find out a little bit later. Let's take a look at the accessories that the Batman comes with. So let's get into the accessories for the Batman, and there are a lot of them. First we have our neutral head sculpt, which is already on the figure. It comes like that in the box, and that's a pretty good likeliness to the movie. I'm pretty happy with that. We have our alternate head sculpt, which is a grinning Batman head sculpt. The grinning looks pretty funny, but depending on how you angle it, you can probably make it look good. We have our Robert Pattinson head sculpt. It looks pretty good. I think that's a good likeliness to Robert Pattinson and how he looked like in the movie. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. And we have our Gotham is in turmoil head sculpt. The hair is all messy. The blackened out eyes that goes underneath the cowl. You can have him looking down the city or in the Batcave, just kind of thinking about what's going on outside in Gotham, and how he's going to tackle those problems. And we have an empty cowl. Empty cowl is always good. You can have him pose as taking the helmet off or taking the cowl off and exposing this head sculpt underneath that. That would look cool. To switch out the head sculpts, you need to grab a hold of the neck and pull. Most likely you're going to take the whole neck peg off. To switch to the other Batman head sculpt, you need to pull these apart and exposing this joint here, and then you're going to clip the grinning head on and then port that back on like so. There's your grinning head sculpt. To get the Pattinson head sculpt on, you need to make sure that you take both the head and the neck off so that you're exposed with just that ball joint there. You're going to take the Robert Pattinson head sculpt with the neck on there, and you're going to peg that in just like so. And that's what he looks like with his neutral face on, and I think that looks pretty good. To get this head sculpt on, you're going to have to pull the head and neck off again, and then you're going to need to separate these two like so that you're left with just the bottom part there. Peg that on, and then pop that on like so. The Batman comes with an alternate chest piece that does not have the batarang on it. The batarang that comes separately, so in case you want to use that in some displays, like he's holding the batarang. In order to take this apart, you just grab a hold of the sides here and you carefully separate the chest, and then you grab the other alternate chest, and then you just port that in like so. And then there you have the chest piece without the batarang or the armor. He comes with a grapple gun and a holstered grapple gun, and just out of the box he comes with the holster empty. So in order to switch over to the holstered one, you want to remove that by taking it and pulling on it, and then you have the pegs lining up like so. Put that in, just like that. So then there you would have the holstered grapple gun there. The Batman comes with alternate forearms because he has these little grapple guns that are sculpted into the forearms that he comes with in the package. What you're going to want to do is take the forearm and grab by the elbow and pull, and that will detach that part. Then you're going to install the other forearm that doesn't have the grapple gun sculpted in, like so. So you can see now there's no longer a grapple gun. He comes with two little grapple guns. They are tiny, so they might not appear. There we go. So they're pretty tiny, but it's to mimic them sliding out into his hand. So you can get one of the other alternate hands and you can port it in there like so, and then push that into the wrist peg, and then there you would have the grapple gun in his hand. He also comes with a little miniature flare that he used at the end of the movie to illuminate the underground. 9 pairs of hands. We have our fisted hands that are already on there. We have some open grip hands. We have some wide open grip hands. We have some relaxed hands. We have some thumbs up hands or gripping hands with a thumb up. We have some wide trigger fingers. We have some narrow trigger fingers. We have another pair of fists that looks almost identical to the fists that are already on there. They probably are identical. And we have another pair of thumbs up fists that, are they the same thing? I don't know. They look almost identical. Maybe one's just a little bit wider than the other. Alright, let's get into the articulation for the Batman. So MAFEX figures, they usually have quite a bit of articulation, and this figure is no different. The head can look up only that much because there's something in the way, and that's the collar piece right there. He can look down quite a bit, and looking side and side, the collar again is in the way there, and you can tilt the head side to side there. The shoulders, they can move up about that much, and they can pull out and come across his body like so. There is a bicep swivel. The shoulder pad, it is on a hinge, but that hinge is very tiny. So be very careful when you're playing with these shoulder pads. They do come off fairly easy, but you can port them back on. But if you move, oh boy, now we can't get it on. There we go. But if you move the shoulder pads side to side on accident when you're trying to pose him, you could break that little tab off, and then there goes the shoulder pad. You're not going to be able to get it back on there. There's a double jointed elbow that bends very well, where we have wrist pegs that can move, and then if you rotate it, you can move the other way as well. There is a diaphragm joint that you also need to be careful with, because the way that the armor is sculpted, if you bend this diaphragm joint forward, that armor is going to come into contact with the abdomen, and you're going to scratch the paint off. So you want to pull forward. So this is the figure in the retracted position. You want to pull the figure forward like so, and then make that bend so that you can have a little bit of a gap there. There is also a waist articulation down here. The figure can bend back quite a bit as well. There is rotation as well, but again, be very careful from that cut there. You don't want to dig into the abdomen there. And then there's also lower rotation that feels quite stiff. So be careful with the lower rotation, because With these MAFEX figures, there has been instances, especially on like the brown suit Wolverine, where people have broken the peg when they were trying to rotate that there. The belt is, I believe I've said this before, but the belt is glued into the back there, so it's not a free-floating belt. Now this is where I complain a little bit about the design choices here. Our hips can move up, but then there's another joint that's like, is this supposed to be a thigh cut? Because human legs don't move like this. So I don't know what the heck they were thinking. The legs can go out that much, and then with that joint, I mean, this is a useless joint, and it kind of screws up the figure, the proportions of the figure and so on. I don't know what they were thinking with that joint, but yeah, that's one of the weirdest design choices I've seen. The legs don't move here at that point. They move at the hips. They do come up quite far. The knees are double jointed. There is no boot cut. The ankles move, well, this ankle, unfortunately, it moves like crazy. So this is just another QC issue. I'm not sure what they were thinking with this. I don't even know what kind of joint this is, but it's just moving all over the place, and it's extremely loose. So that was a bad design choice there. There is a toe hinge as well. That looks good. Like I said, this figure does move pretty well, and you can get him into some dynamic fighting poses. Let's see if I can put him into something. So when you're posing this guy, you kind of got to be careful that this doesn't look like it's just, that looks out of place right there. So to correct that, you need to kind of push that together so that it stays flush. But yeah, you can get him into some freestanding fighting poses pretty good. And the cape works very well, so if you want to have some nice kind of wind effects there, you can set him up like so. That ankle's giving me a problem. Alright, let's get into some size comparisons with some other Batman from MAFEX. Here is the Batman The Dark Knight Returns, and here is the Batman Hush. And these figures pretty much stand within scale with each other. And with some other lines, here he is next to my custom Mezco Sovereign Knight Batman and a Mezco Two-Face in case you wanted to mix and match some of your lines. Here he is next to a MAFEX Catwoman. Hopefully one day we'll get a Catwoman from the Batman movie. Here's Batman next to some tracksuit Mafia goons from Marvel Legends. And just for some kicks, here he is next to the Mezco Retro Batman. If you haven't heard and you're wondering what the recall was about, it unfortunately does say Marvel on his low back. And well, yeah, that's a really bad error. I'm not going to take this figure apart because it's not mine. I had a fellow collector and a friend of mine who was kind enough to let me review his figure. I'm going to post his Instagram details so you can give him a follow. We just started a toy photography account, so I greatly appreciate my buddy Sean for that. Final thoughts on this figure, should you buy it? Well, only if you're a fan of the 2022 Batman film and you're a fan of Robert Pattinson as Batman. I personally enjoyed the movie, so for me it's worth the $110 Canadian price point that I paid for this figure. And from a photography standpoint, this figure snaps very well. You can get some good dynamic poses out of it. The figure itself aesthetically looks really nice. There are some QC issues with it, but you can kind of work around those. If you found this review helpful, hit that thumbs up and the subscribe buttons. Head on over to Instagram at plastic.life with a Y to check out some of my toy photography. A special thanks to my friend skimp_Keosama for letting me review this Batman. And always remember, it's your collection. Buy whatever makes you happy. I hope you check out my next reviews. Take care.